President Obama arrives in Chicago to give his farewell address at a dark time for the city. The murder rate there is soaring, even as it plummets in most major American cities. And it's led many former supporters to become disappointed with Obama in his final days, as one of them told our Rosa Flores.
He's neglected to talk about the starving communities. He's neglected to talk about the violence. I guess he's coming back to say thank you for us helping put him in. We're not going to be saying thank you for the 8 years of work that he didn't do in the black communities.
One of the most important figures in Chicago's perennial fight against gun violence is, in fact, a white Catholic priest.
What makes someone a target is not the shooter. What makes someone a target is the community that surrenders to fear.
That was Spike Lee's Chirac, and a character based on the real-life father Michael Pfleger, who has known President Obama for more than 3 decades.
For many years, nobody even cared about Chicago because the violence is primarily black and brown.
Father Mike, first of all, for those of you who don't know him, has been working since before I moved to Chicago, and I was a 23-year-old when I first met him. And somehow I aged and he didn't.
Now, as America embarks on a radical political change, Father Pfleger tells me the solutions to end violence are there, but the political will is not. Father Pfleger, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Christiana. Nice to be on it.
I need to ask you first, because you are somebody who likes to change things up. You have a shirt now saying, let's change the world.
Well, I always teach my congregation that our concerns should not be just our house, our block, our home, our neighborhood, but we have to be globally minded because we're affected globally and we ought to be affecting globally. So we should always think in terms of the world. The world's concerns should be our concerns.
And what about President Obama, who's in Chicago today to give his farewell address? What would you say he's achieved or not in the areas that you are mostly closely associated with ministering?
I think he did great with looking at the criminal justice system and how we need to reform it. He did great with having our attorney generals, be it Eric Holder or Loretta Lynch, looking at police departments in Chicago and around this country that need help. But obviously, his home city, Chicago, has a very serious crime problem. We're out of control. And I wish more federal resources and perhaps some federal direction needed to be taken there.
Well, to that point, you know, you speak right into what Donald Trump has been saying. As we know, the statistics are awful, and I'll read them to you, particularly in a Trump tweet. Chicago murder rate is record-setting, 4,331 shooting victims, 762 murders in 2016. And if the mayor can't do it, he must ask for federal help, which is kind of what you've just said. What has gone wrong in Chicago? And there are, you know, gun control laws.
Well, let me say 2 things. First of all, it worries me when Donald Trump speaks like that because all he spoke during the campaign was stop and frisk and law and order. We do not need stop and frisk. We don't need federal troops or National Guard. What we need is good schools, deal with unemployment, deal with businesses, and make communities that look like third world countries into an equal playing field. I think what has gone wrong, we talk about the strong gun laws in Chicago, or even some good ones in Illinois. Right next door to Illinois, where many of our illegal guns come from, is Indiana. Indiana has some of the loosest gun laws in the country, and that's where the now vice president was, in fact, a governor of, which worries me tremendously moving into his role as vice president. And of course, President-elect Trump, who was supported by the NRA. So my fear is that gun laws in these neighboring states that are so loose will not only continue, but perhaps expand. But I think we lack the federal resources we need. When there's a hurricane, a tornado, a fire in this country, we call for a federal state of emergency, and resources come in to help that community build. Well, we've got to come into our communities where crime and violence are the most growing in the 15 neighborhoods in Chicago and bring in jobs. We say 4.6% unemployment in America. Well, it's 25 to 32% where I live.
Well, to that end, then, can I play yet another soundbite from Donald Trump?
There is no education, there are no jobs, and there is no safety. Nearly 3,500 people have been shot in the city of Chicago since the beginning of the year. Can you believe that? So to the African-American community and to the Hispanic community and voters, I say, what do you have to lose? Vote for Donald Trump. I will fix it. I will fix it.
What do you make of that exhortation and that pledge by Donald Trump? Will he be the one to be able to fix the kinds of things that you've identified as problems?
Well, to listen to the rest of his speeches, I do not think so. When has he been at the South Side or the West Side of Chicago to talk to anybody or listen to anybody? So I have a problem when somebody says, I'm going to fix it, but you've never asked what is the problem, never sat down and talked with people, and never invited people into your company to discuss it. You know, him saying that from that sometimes very patronizing and a very arrogant mentality is that I got it. I think that's one of the problems we have right now is people feel like they got this. No, you don't have it. Sit down and listen and talk. We can tell you in the ground level what we need and then see what you can do.
The mother of one of the young boys who was killed over the summer had a very sort of heart-rending plea to the public. Basically, you know, her child was about 2 days from his 17th birthday. He was shot at Monday night, standing just on a street corner, and he was taken to a hospital and pronounced dead shortly thereafter. This is what she said.
So please, if you seen something, please say something. Nobody has to even know that you told. It's confidential, but please, I don't want anyone else to get hurt. No mother should ever feel the way that I feel. If you want to help me, say something. I want them to go to jail. And I want them to think about it every day, what they did to my son.
I mean, it's so tragic, Pastor. You see her there surrounded by Jesse Jackson and other politicians and activists. But what will people do for that community? I mean, right now we read incredulously about safe zones and safe passages for people to try to walk their kids to school. I mean, really, we don't think that we're talking about an American city. It sounds like something in the worst part of the world.
Well, I think first of all, that mother, I've heard and listened to mothers and fathers like that far too often. It's a reality that we don't live in Chicago in a post-traumatic stress. We live in a present traumatic stress. When I asked a 6th grade girl, what do you want to be when you grow up? And her answer is alive. We have a serious problem here. And I think that we have the answers. But I don't think we have the will, and we're not willing to commit the resources and have the courage to admit that there's many American problems we got to deal with if we really want to stop this violence.
You are white. As I said, I've left this question to the last because it begs the question. You talk about a very divided country, and we've seen it in this election. How did you manage to become the lead pastor of the blackest of blackest neighborhoods? 98% African-American is the neighborhood that you minister to.
Well, I think a couple of things, Christiane. I think number one is that people always say, what's it like being white in the black community? When the reality is, the real question is, what's it like being black in a white community? Black communities always had white firemen, white policemen, white store owners. I think what people want is a commitment of being genuine and authentic, roll up your sleeves and live this and walk this with us. I've lived on that corner in 78th Place in the Auburn Gresham community for 41 years. And people want to know, are you here to help us and walk with us? That march that you saw was organized by myself and St. Sabina Church. And we put out the call on New Year's Eve in a very cold day, and people came from all over, not only to carry the 800 crosses, but another 1,000 or more people just to walk with us to say, this has got to stop. We need help. So I think deciding you're here, you're going to be a lobbyist, you're going to fight, you're going to scream, you're going to yell, that the church has to once again be the voice for the community and not something isolated or an oasis from the community.
On that very important note of reflection, Father Michael Pfleger, thank you very much for joining us from Chicago.
Thank you. Appreciate it.